Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with anger, anxiety, and control. Welcome back to the Crossroads Cafe, everyone. Today, we are looking at the turning point of the entire recovery journey. We're asking, have you consciously chosen to commit all of your life and will to Christ's care and control? If you haven't, what is actually holding you back? But before we get into that, Chris, I was thinking about how so many of us spend years trying to quiet our stress, but we're still fueling our minds first thing in the morning with high-octane caffeine. That's why I'm so glad to welcome our brand partner, Savorista Coffee.
Hi, my name's Chris. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with anxiety, shame, and OCD. Oh, absolutely, Jordan. Savorista hits right at the heart of the recovery lifestyle. Their founder, Kate Brown, created craft decaf and half-calf coffee out of her own story of realizing caffeine was just amplifying her stress. Her whole focus is built on less hustle and more intention. Our listeners can go to savorista.com and enter the promo code PCBC to get 25% off.
It really helps you pause and savor life instead of constantly running on high alert overdrive. And speaking of creating a calm space for mind and body, another major area where we need rest is getting actual restorative sleep. That's why we're also so grateful to welcome Cozy Earth to the cafe today.
Yes, Cozy Earth completely redefines sleep comfort with their bedding and pajamas made from premium viscose from bamboo, which naturally wicks moisture to keep hot sleepers cool and dry all night long. Thousands of five-star customer reviews call these sheets buttery soft, and they back everything with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Our listeners can head over to CozyEarth.com and use that exact same promo code PCBC to get an exclusive 21% off any product.
That is an incredible deal. And because we earn a commission when you use our code PCBC at checkout for either of these brands, you're directly supporting the show and the ministry here at the cafe. But now, Chris, let's step completely out of commercial mode. When we talk about committing our entire life and will to Christ, people often hesitate because they are terrified of what God might ask them to do next. Let's talk about why we hold back and how life actually changes when we finally hand over the title deed to our lives.
You know, it's actually funny when you realize just how much energy we spend trying to manufacture our own rest.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, whether it's like having the perfect morning routine or the most comfortable bed sheets, it just points to this much deeper underlying weariness in our souls.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to construct these tiny little islands of peace.
Exactly, because the rest of our existence feels so incredibly unmanageable. And that hesitation you just mentioned, that pausing at the threshold of truly giving our lives over to Christ's care, I mean, it's the most universally human response imaginable.
It really is. I mean, you are standing at what is, without a doubt, the ultimate crossroads of human existence. The invitation is sitting right there on the table.
It's a clear, open invitation to consciously choose to commit all of your life and all of your will to His control. And yet, almost all of us freeze.
Yeah, we step right up to that line, we look at the freedom on the other side, and then we just violently pull back.
We do. And we pull back because we are experiencing this massive head-on collision between two competing forces inside of us.
And it feels like they're just tearing us apart, right?
Totally tearing us apart. On one side, you have this desperate, aching need for peace, a need to finally stop managing the universe and just stop running on fumes.
Right, but then on the other side, crashing right into that desire, is this deeply ingrained, almost feral obsession with our own personal autonomy.
Yes, we want the peace, absolutely, but we want to manufacture it on our own terms. We want to be the ones who decide how and when and where that peace is delivered to us.
We want the benefits of surrender without the vulnerability of actually yielding anything.
That is the core conflict right there. We want tranquility, but we strictly refuse to drop the illusion that we are in charge.
So if you're standing on the threshold of this decision, if you're listening right now and you know deep down that you have been hesitating for months or maybe even years, it is absolutely crucial to stop and examine what is actually holding you back.
You have to get brutally honest with yourself, what is the real barrier here?
Because for the vast majority of people trapped in this cycle of control, the barrier isn't some lack of intellectual belief in God.
No, it's really not. It's not that you doubt His existence or that you're hung up on some complex theology. The barrier is this profound, paralyzing fear of what we might call the imaginary fine print.
The imaginary fine print. Oh man, I think every single person who has ever struggled with the need to control their environment knows exactly what that phrase means.
Oh, for sure. It's this incredibly toxic narrative we spin in our own minds, you know?
Right. We convince ourselves that if we truly hand over the total management of our lives to Jesus, There's some hidden clause in the contract that is going to entirely destroy our happiness.
We look at the contract of surrender, and we just assume the bottom of the page is filled with conditions designed to make us absolutely miserable.
We really do. We imagine this terrible, punitive scenario where God is just waiting for us to lower our defenses.
Yeah, like, okay, the moment I completely surrender, the moment I say, you are in charge, he is going to immediately take away the few remaining things that actually bring me comfort.
We convince ourselves he's going to force us down some miserable path of total deprivation.
Right, like he's going to demand that we abandon our careers or move somewhere we hate or sever relationships we desperately want to keep. We just project all of our worst human fears onto him.
Or even worse, we assume he's going to demand a level of flawless moral performance that we could never possibly sustain.
Exactly, setting us up for inevitable failure and then, crushing punishment.
It's incredibly revealing, isn't it? It reveals so much about how we actually view God in those dark moments of hesitation.
It really does. We aren't viewing him as a compassionate father who deeply loves us and inherently knows what is best for us.
No, in the grips of that fear of the fine print, we are viewing him as a rigid taskmaster, a boss who's just waiting to exploit our vulnerability the very second we drop our guard.
We think of surrender not as a rescue mission, but as walking willingly into a trap. And because we are so terrified of this imaginary fine print, we resort to the oldest trick in the book.
Start negotiating.
Yes, the endless wearying negotiation. We become bargainers instead of believers.
Trying to find a loophole, right?
A loophole where we can secure all the benefits of peace without actually relinquishing our grip on the autonomy we crave. We say things like, okay, God, I won't give you total control because that is too terrifying. But how about we share the load? How about a partnership?
Which brings us directly to one of the most culturally accepted, yet deeply flawed concepts out there. You see it on bumper stickers, you hear it in casual conversation, and people genuinely think it's this profound spiritual truth.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
The idea of making God your co-pilot.
Yes, the co-pilot. People absolutely love that idea.
But let's really evaluate what a co-pilot actually does. A co-pilot sits quietly beside you in the cockpit. They do not make the primary navigational decisions.
Right. They're just there to assist you in your emergencies.
Exactly. They are there to validate your chosen flight plan, to hand you a coffee when you're feeling sluggish, and maybe take the yoke for a few minutes while you close your eyes and take a brief break.
We ask God to bless our predetermined plans, to assist us when our plans create a complete disaster, and to forgive our miscalculations.
But we stubbornly, vehemently refuse to give up the captain's chair.
We want to stay firmly in charge of the destination, want him there as a premium insurance policy, not as the owner of the aircraft.
We just want his power to back up our agenda. So if you are listening right now and you have a contingency plan quietly tucked in your back pocket, you have to realize that a partial commitment is practically identical to no commitment at all.
It really is.
You cannot consciously commit your life to Christ while keeping a secret escape hatch ready to go, just in case his plan doesn't align with your personal preferences.
The whole co-pilot concept is a massive illusion.
Think about a toddler in the back seat of a car. You know when you put a kid in a car seat and you give them one of those plastic steering wheels that suction cups to the window?
Oh my goodness, yes.
They sit in the back, and they're aggressively turning that plastic wheel. When the car turns left, they turn left, and they genuinely believe they are driving the vehicle.
They're so intensely focused on it, too?
But the reality is their wheel isn't connected to the axle. It's connected to absolutely nothing. And that is exactly what our control is. We are in the back seat, aggressively turning a plastic wheel, sweating from the effort, clenching our jaws, thinking we are keeping the car on the road. And when we talk about surrendering, we aren't asking you to jump out of a moving vehicle. We're just asking you to realize your wheel is plastic, drop it, and trust the actual driver.
That visual of the plastic steering wheel is so remarkably accurate because it highlights the profound futility of what we are doing.
It's all an illusion.
You are putting immense physical and emotional effort into turning a wheel that has zero mechanical connection to reality. You are depleting yourself over an illusion.
Completely depleting.
And what happens when you live like that? It is completely draining. When you try to hold on to control while pretending to surrender, you get the absolute worst of both worlds.
Yeah, you do not get the genuine peace of letting go.
No, and you don't even get the temporary hollow satisfaction of actually being in charge. You are just stuck in this wearying state of perpetual resistance.
You're fighting the very reality that is trying to safely navigate you home.
Exactly. So because the illusion of the co-pilot fails so completely, we really have to move away from this flawed negotiation tactic entirely.
We have to look at what a true biblical commitment of our will actually entails. It is not a partnership agreement.
No, it's not a timeshare.
It is a permanent, irrevocable transfer of ownership. It is exactly like holding the title deed to a piece of real estate.
The concept of the title deed is such a powerful, stabilizing way to understand this because ownership is a concept we all intuitively grasp on a very practical level.
Right.
When you hold the title deed to a property, you are the sole uncontested owner. Your name is on the legal document.
And with that ownership comes absolute, undeniable responsibility. You hold the deed, which means you bear the crushing weight of all the liabilities associated with that property.
You reap the benefits, sure, but you also absorb every single risk.
Let's ground that in reality. Think about what those liabilities are in the real world. If you own the house and a massive, unforeseen storm causes the roof to cave in, you cannot just pick up the phone and call a landlord to handle it.
Right, because you are the landlord.
You have to figure out how to finance the repairs. You have to figure out how to patch the hole where your family is going to sleep while the house is exposed to the elements and how to manage the contractors.
It's all on you.
If the foundation cracks and the entire structure threatens to collapse into the earth, that terrifying reality rests entirely on your shoulders. When the property taxes are due, the government looks at exactly one name on the ledger, and it's yours.
The liability is total, it is complete, and it is entirely yours to manage. And living with that constant looming reality creates an immense psychological burden.
The anxiety of ownership.
Yes, that is what keeps us awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. We lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house, frantically trying to solve problems that we fundamentally lack the resources to fix.
We worry about our children's future and whether our parenting mistakes are going to ruin their lives.
We agonize over our financial security, wondering if a single market downturn will wipe out everything we have built.
We obsess over our physical health, analyzing every ache and pain, convinced it's the beginning of the end.
We try to control how other people perceive us, terrified that a single misstep will destroy our reputation.
We are carrying the liabilities of a universe we were never designed or equipped to run.
That is the core issue, isn't it? We are actively trying to act as the general manager of the universe.
The general manager of the universe.
We have proudly assigned ourselves a job title that we have absolutely zero qualifications for. Think about the profound, crushing pressure of feeling entirely responsible for everything and everyone around you.
It's a depleting, terribly isolating way to exist. You are constantly running damage control on 1,000 different fronts.
Terrified that if you drop even one of those spinning plates, the whole show comes crashing down and everyone you love will suffer because of your incompetence.
But consciously choosing to commit our lives to Christ changes that entire dynamic from the ground up. Committing your will isn't about promising God that you are going to try harder. It isn't about promising to be a better, more moral person. It is the definitive legal act of taking that title deed. The document that says you are solely responsible for your life and signing it over to Him.
You are executing a permanent transfer of property. You are changing the name on the ledger.
Which means it's a raw, deeply vulnerable admission of defeat, but in the best possible way. You are essentially standing there, holding out the paperwork and saying, I am completely unqualified to be the general manager of my own life.
I do not have the wisdom to see the future.
I do not have the power to change other people's hearts.
I certainly do not have the foresight to run this operation successfully.
I am finally ready to step down and let the Creator assume total ownership of the property. This isn't some high-minded theological debate that you have to win in your head. It is a pragmatic, survival-level admission of your own extreme limitations.
And the relief that follows that authentic admission is profound. To resign as general manager, to finally hand over the clipboard, take off the badge, and say, I am not in charge of the outcomes anymore.
The mental shift is staggering when you realize you no longer have to carry the crushing liabilities of tomorrow.
The weight physically lifts off your chest.
But the fear of that imaginary fine print is so incredibly real, and the grip on that plastic steering wheel is so tight. So to see exactly how this shift happens in reality, we shouldn't just talk about it in abstract legal concepts. I think it is critical to hear what this actually looks like on a granular, messy, daily level.
Yeah, that's fair.
What was it that kept you holding back for so many years? And what did that transfer of the title deed actually look like in your own life?
Well, for years, the concept of surrendering my life terrified me to my absolute core. My hesitation, exactly like we were just describing, had nothing to do with questioning theology.
Wow.
I believed God existed. I believed he was historically real, and I even believed he was fundamentally good. But my entire personality, like my entire way of navigating the dangerous world around me, was built around preventing disaster through intense, relentless over-preparation.
You felt like you had to single-handedly engineer everyone's safety.
Yes, I genuinely deeply believed that if I did not manage every single detail of my environment, everything would simply fall apart. It looked like sitting alone at my dining room table, hour after hour, filling these spiral notebooks with endless detailed lists.
Wow, just notebooks full of plans.
Endless lists. I would write out backup plans, and then I'd write backup plans for the backup plans. I would try to imagine every possible worst-case scenario for every single family gathering, every holiday, every work project, every financial decision.
That sounds draining.
If we were going on a trip, I wasn't just packing bags. I was mentally preparing for flat tires, lost reservations, sudden illnesses, and relational conflicts. I was constantly playing chess against an invisible opponent, trying to anticipate where tragedy or disappointment might strike next so I could block the move before it happened.
That sounds incredibly wearying. Just sitting at the dining room table, bearing the weight of all those potential fabricated disasters. You were living the trauma of 100 different crises that haven't even happened yet.
It was completely draining. I was running on an empty tank constantly. But I could not stop because I secretly believed that my mental management, my frantic planning, was the only thing holding my fragile world together.
It was a false sense of peace.
The temporary relief of a finished list was the only peace I knew. I thought that if I stopped obsessing, if I stopped planning for every catastrophe, the people I loved would be let down, I would fail them, they would suffer, and everything would collapse.
Right.
So when I heard the invitation to surrender my life to Christ, I balked. I held back from God because I thought surrender meant giving up the very mechanism that kept me and my family safe. I thought handing over control meant willingly stepping into chaotic danger. I viewed my anxiety not as a prison, but as my ultimate protection.
You thought you were being asked to throw away your only source of security. You thought the spiral notebooks were your salvation.
I really did. I clung to them. And the turning point, the moment I actually handed over the ownership of my life, was not some grand, dramatic event with a choir singing in the background. It wasn't a formal speech at a podium or a deeply emotional altar call. It happened on a very quiet, painfully ordinary Sunday afternoon in my home office.
Bring us into that room. What was happening in that moment that finally broke the illusion?
It was completely silent in the house. I was sitting alone at my desk, and I was surrounded by a sea of calendars. I had my planner open, I had highlighters out, and I was trying to perfectly map out the next 3 months of my life.
Sounds intense.
I was trying to lock down every schedule, anticipate every conflict, arrange every tiny detail so that nothing could possibly go wrong for anyone in my family.
Right.
I was gripping the pen so tightly my hand hurt staring at the pages, and my mind was just racing with all the variables I couldn't control. What if someone gets sick? What if this project gets delayed? What if this person gets angry? And suddenly, in the absolute quiet of that room, I had this overwhelming, undeniable realization. The realization was as clear as day. My relentless planning wasn't keeping me safe at all.
Wow.
It was just slowly draining the life out of me. It wasn't preventing the future from happening. It was just entirely destroying my ability to live in the present.
The illusion of control finally shattered. You realized the plastic steering wheel wasn't turning the car.
It did. It shattered completely. I realized I was carrying a burden I was never designed to carry, and it was crushing me.
Yeah.
I physically put my pen down on the desk. I closed the planner. I pushed the spiral notebooks away.
That takes so much courage.
And I prayed what was probably the most raw, honest, desperate prayer of my entire life. I didn't use any fancy religious words. I just sat there and said, Lord, I cannot keep trying to predict tomorrow. I am so weary of trying to hold my world together. I don't know how to let go, but I'm giving my life to you today. Please take it. I resign.
I am so weary of trying to hold my world together. If you are listening right now, I guarantee there are so many of you who feel that exact same weariness deep in your bones. You are holding your family together, your career together, your image together with sheer brute force of will, and you are completely depleted.
Totally depleted.
So you pray that prayer, you sign over the title deed in that quiet home office, you slide the paperwork across the desk. If you have made this decision, the immediate pressing question that follows is, how has your life actually changed since that Sunday afternoon?
That is the most important question we can ask, isn't it? Because there is a very common, very dangerous worldly expectation that surrendering to Christ should act like a magic wand.
Oh, absolutely.
We desperately want to believe that the moment you hand over the deed, your life will instantly become a perfectly smooth, paved road.
Right. We expect that because we surrendered, because we gave up control, we will now be rewarded by being free from all relational conflict, free from any financial strain, immune to physical illness, and protected from sudden tragedies.
We expect the external world to suddenly conform to our comfort as a reward for our surrender.
We think, I gave God the deed, so now He owes me a perfectly manicured lawn in sunny weather every single day. I gave up my spiral notebooks, so now you have to make sure nothing bad ever happens to me. We expect a trouble-free existence.
But that is not the authentic reality of a surrendered life. The reality is far more profound and far more resilient than just the mere absence of external trouble. When I look at how my life changed after that quiet moment at my desk, my external circumstances did not magically become flawless.
No.
I still face incredibly demanding days. I still deal with unexpected schedule changes that throw everything off balance. I still encounter difficult people, complex problems, and frustrating situations. The storms of life absolutely still hit the house, the wind still howls, and the rain still pours.
The storms still come. But something foundational has shifted in how you experience the storm.
Everything foundational has shifted. The storm still hit the property, but the burden of ownership has fundamentally changed hands. Because I no longer hold the title deed, the crushing, suffocating weight of having to perfectly manage the outcome is gone. I am no longer responsible for stopping the rain.
Let's really explore that difference, because this is where the actual freedom is found. Think about the concept of the trusting tenant. If you have signed over the deed to the house, you are no longer the owner. You are now a tenant living in a property owned by someone else.
Yes.
And the roles, the psychological posture of an owner versus a tenant are completely different.
They're worlds apart.
Your job as a tenant is no longer to control the weather. It is not your responsibility to run out into the yard and try to stop the hurricane from hitting the neighborhood. It is not your job to fix the cracked foundation or rewire the electrical system when it fails. When the roof leaks, you don't spiral into a dark panic because you don't have the funds in your checking account to replace it. You simply notify the owner. Your job is to remain a trusting, obedient tenant. You wake up, you listen to his daily instructions, you take care of the space you've been given for that day, and you rest in the absolute certainty that the true owner is fully capable of handling the mess. He will preserve what belongs to him.
Exactly.
Now, wait. I have to push back on this trusting tenant idea just a bit, because if my child is sick or if my company is going through massive layoffs, I have to take action. I can't just be passive.
Right.
If I just say, well, I'm a tenant, not my problem, God will handle it. Isn't that just negligence? Isn't that spiritual bypassing? It feels like the equivalent of a tenant watching a water pipe burst in the living room, sitting on the couch as the water rises and saying, well, the landlord will fix it eventually. How is stepping back not just abandoning our responsibilities?
That is such a crucial distinction because true surrender is never passive negligence. A trusting tenant does not sit on the couch while the water rises. A good tenant immediately springs into action. They turn off the water valve to minimize damage, they grab some towels to soak up the mess, and then they immediately call the owner. You still take your sick child to the doctor. You still update your resume if layoffs are coming. You still have responsibilities.
Okay, yeah.
The difference, the massive life-altering difference, is the internal panic regarding the ultimate liability. As a tenant, you do the footwork, but you are not carrying the crushing belief that the ultimate outcome rests entirely on your ability to fix the pipe. You know the owner is going to step in with resources you do not possess. You are taking action out of obedience, not out of sheer hyperventilating panic.
That makes perfect sense. You do the next right thing, but you surrender the final outcome. That means you no longer have to manipulate your environment to feel safe. When the crisis occurs, you don't have to aggressively control the people around you to force a specific result.
No, you don't.
You don't have to retreat into destructive habits to numb the pressure, because the ultimate responsibility for the outcome doesn't belong to you anymore. You are trusting the owner to secure the premises, even while you were holding the towel.
Yes. And this internal shift, this moving from panicking owner to responsible tenant, changes the entire texture of a human life. It alters your baseline emotional state from the ground up. The way your body feels on a random Tuesday afternoon is entirely different.
Let's examine that baseline emotional state. Because before we surrender, for those of us struggling with control, our baseline is characterized by constant, wearying hypervigilance. Our body's alarm system is permanently stuck in the on position.
Hypervigilance is the exact right term. It is living with your internal alarm set to maximum sensitivity at all times. Before I surrendered my will, walking into any situation felt like walking into a potential hazard zone. I would walk into a room, a meeting, a party, a family dinner, and immediately start scanning for threats. And those threats weren't physical, they were emotional and social.
What does that look like in everyday life, scanning a room for social threats? Describe that feeling.
It looks like constantly, relentlessly trying to manage what other people think of you. You are reading every facial expression, analyzing every slight change in tone of voice, trying to figure out if someone is disappointed in you, if they are judging your outfit, if you said the wrong thing 5 minutes ago.
That is exhausting. Completely draining.
You replay conversations in your head on the drive home, dissecting every word. You draft a text message 4 times before sending it because you are terrified of being misunderstood. You are draining yourself trying to curate this perfect, impenetrable image so that no one can find a flaw.
Yeah.
You are constantly projecting your mind into the future, trying to secure your reputation, trying to guarantee your professional success, trying to make sure no one discovers your hidden weaknesses. It is a deeply insecure, fiercely defensive posture. Your muscles are always tense.
It's a posture of constant self-protection. Because when you are the owner of your life, any failure is a total indictment of your worth. Think about it. If your identity is tied exclusively to your professional success or your flawless reputation as a parent, then a single mistake threatens to destroy your entire sense of self.
Exactly.
You have to hide your weaknesses because you cannot afford the liability of being seen as incompetent. If the house has a cracked foundation and you are the owner, that reflects directly on you.
But after you commit your will to Christ's care, that draining hypervigilance is gradually replaced by something so beautiful and foreign. A quiet, unshakable stability.
Unshakable stability, not because circumstances are perfect, but because your identity has been relocated.
Exactly. My identity is no longer tied to whether I organized a flawless family gathering or whether everyone at work thinks I'm incredibly competent. It isn't tethered to my ability to hide my daily struggles. Because when you hand over that deed, you come to the profound realization that you are fully known and perfectly loved by the Savior. He already knows every weakness, every failure, every irrational fear that kept you awake at night. And knowing all of that, he still chose to take ownership of your life.
The incredible relief of being fully known. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to carry the heavy mask of competence.
You can finally drop the draining act of pretending you have it all together. It is such a heavy, suffocating mask to wear. And when you realize your worth is anchored entirely in his grace and not in your daily performance, it fundamentally changes how you process failure.
That's huge.
When I make a mistake now, I don't have to spiral into a dark, multi-day cycle of self-hatred. I don't have to beat myself up for days because I forgot something important or handled a conversation poorly. The mistake is just a mistake. It is no longer a referendum on my value as a human being. I'm just a tenant who made an error, not a failed god of my own universe.
Now, I want to clarify something very practical here, because it is easy for someone listening to think that once you make this decision, once you pray that prayer at your desk, you just float on a cloud of perfect trust for the rest of your life. The daily temptation to grab the steering wheel doesn't just vanish entirely, does it? The urge to run back to the passenger seat and grab that plastic wheel is still there.
Oh, the temptation is absolutely still there. The muscle memory of trying to control everything does not erase itself overnight. It is deeply ingrained. There are still days when my immediate reaction to a sudden fear is to start mentally drafting a new list, looking for a new spiral notebook to fill. The panic still flares up.
So what is the profound change then, if the temptation remains, if the panic still flares? What is actually different after the transfer of ownership?
The profound change is that we now possess a new supernatural capacity to recognize that temptation in real time. Before surrender, I would just blindly follow my anxiety down the rabbit hole. I wouldn't even realize I was spinning out of control until I was completely depleted and my relationships were strained.
Right.
But now, when that familiar panic starts to rise in my chest, I have the capacity to pause. I can recognize the physical sensation and say, oh, I am trying to grab the title deed back. I am trying to resign as a trusting tenant and reapply for the job of general manager.
You can catch yourself before the old habits completely take over. You recognize the plastic wheel for what it is.
Yes, I can pause, take a deep breath, and consciously hand the control back to God before those old control habits can destroy my peace and the peace of the people around me. It is a daily, sometimes hourly, practice of reminding myself who the true owner is. It is a constant resubmitting of the paperwork.
And that leads perfectly into a crucial, non-negotiable reality about this entire journey. Maintaining this profound change in lifestyle, maintaining this posture of a trusting tenant, is practically impossible if we attempt to do it completely in isolation. We cannot do this alone in our living rooms.
We really can't, because the world around us is not a neutral environment that supports surrender. It is a loud, aggressive environment that is constantly shouting a completely different toxic message.
The culture we live in bombards us every single day with the idea that success belongs exclusively to the self-made. It praises the aggressive, the independent, the hustler who never sleeps and never asks for help.
Oh, totally.
The world tells you that if you want security, you have to seize it yourself. You have to build your own empire, protect your own borders, trust no one, and never rely on anyone else.
It is a culture that actively rewards the general manager mindset. It applauds hyper-vigilance as a strong work ethic. It calls anxiety dedication. So if you try to live a surrendered life in isolation, the daily noise of that cultural messaging will eventually drown out the quiet stability of your commitment. You will slowly, almost imperceptibly, start believing that you need to take ownership back just to survive in the world.
To counteract that daily noise and to actively remember that we are no longer the owners of our own lives, we desperately need a physical community of fellow believers to anchor us. Not just a conceptual community, not just a group text, but a physical space where we can look other human beings in the eye. That is the exact purpose of the weekly fellowship of Celebrate Recovery at Peters Creek Baptist Church in South Park, Pennsylvania.
It is a designated sanctuary for this exact struggle. The Friday night schedule is intentionally designed to help us step out of the loud, aggressive world and step into a rhythm where we practice the art of surrender together. It is a training ground for tenants.
Let's walk through what that journey actually looks like, because the structure of the evening is so important for someone who is terrified of letting go of control. The evening begins precisely at 6:30 p.m. with large group worship. Walk us through why that first hour is so vital.
That first hour at 6:30 p.m. is critical. It is a time of corporate praise and biblical teaching. Why do we start there? Because when you have spent all week battling the temptation to manage the universe, when you are carrying the residue of a week spent fighting for control, you are weary.
Yeah.
But then you walk into that room and you stand alongside 50 other people who are just as broken, just as tired, and you sing truths about who God is. It shatters the isolation. You hear the voices around you, and you realize you aren't the only one who failed this week. You aren't the only one who dropped the plates.
Right.
The act of corporate praise physically reorients your focus away from your own frantic hands and points it back to the immense goodness and capability of the God who holds your title deed. It realigns your perspective before you even start talking about your own struggles.
It sets the baseline. You are remembering who is actually in charge. And then, at 7:30 p.m., the structure shifts. The large group transitions into gender-specific small groups. Now, for someone who struggles with control or hypervigilance, walking into a small group can sound absolutely terrifying. They might fear being judged or fixed or told what to do. But these small groups are governed by very strict guidelines.
The guidelines are what make the sanctuary possible. We have rules that ensure zero crosstalk, absolutely no unsolicited advice giving, and total uncompromised confidentiality.
Let's focus on those rules for a second. Zero crosstalk and no unsolicited advice giving. For people recovering from control issues, those rules are a massive shock to the system, but they are an absolute lifeline.
Oh, completely.
Because when you identify as a general manager, your default reaction to someone else's pain is to try to fix it. If we sit in a circle and you share a deeply painful struggle, my immediate instinct is to hand you a 5-step plan to solve your crisis. I want to manage your pain because unresolved pain makes me uncomfortable.
Exactly. The rules intentionally strip away our ability to manage each other. They physically prevent us from trying to be the general manager of someone else's life. It forces us to just listen, to bear witness to the pain without trying to engineer a solution.
That's so freeing.
And on the flip side, it means when you share your own messy struggle, you aren't going to be bombarded with 10 different people trying to fix you. It is a safe place to simply confess the areas where you are struggling to let go of control. You can say out loud, I tried to take the deed back this week. I started filling out the spiral notebooks again. I grabbed the plastic steering wheel, and you can just be heard without being managed.
It creates a designated rhythm of yielding control. You aren't meant to carry the weight alone, and you aren't meant to carry anyone else's weight either. You are just there to bear witness to each other's journey as trusting tenants.
And then, after that intense time of vulnerability, the evening transitions again. At 8:30 p.m., the Crosstalk Cafe opens.
The cafe is such a vital piece of the puzzle. It is a relaxed, face-to-face space. You have done the hard work of reorienting your focus in worship. You have done the vulnerable work of confession in small group. And now at 8:30 p.m., you just get to build healthy relationships. You can connect with sponsors, have genuine, unstructured conversations, and remind one another of the freedom that comes from letting God lead. It is where the joy of surrender is actually lived out in real time.
It really is. It is where you look around the room and see dozens of other people who have also resigned as general manager of the universe, and you see that they are okay. They are surviving. In fact, they're thriving with a peace that the world simply cannot understand. It reinforces the reality that letting go doesn't lead to disaster. It leads to incredible freedom.
If you are listening today, and you are in the local South Park or Bethel Park area, and as you listen to this conversation, you realize that your fear of the imaginary fine print has kept you from experiencing true peace, we extend an urgent, heartfelt invitation for you to join us this coming Friday night. Step out of the isolation. Step away from the dining room table, put down the spiral notebooks, drop the plastic steering wheel, and come practice surrender with us.
Yes, please join us. You do not have to carry that crushing weight for one more week. There is a chair waiting for you.
And for those of you tuning in from outside Western Pennsylvania, you do not have to do this alone either. You can find a safe, Bible-centered recovery fellowship near you by visiting the web. Go to crlocator.com and enter your zip code. That is crlocator.com.
You can also reach out directly to our leadership team. If you have questions, if you need someone to talk to about taking this step, if you want to know more about what it means to yield the deed, you can email Craig Amstone at craig.amstone@gmail.com. Or you can contact our church office directly at info@pcbc.church.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. I want you to look closely at the areas of your life where you are feeling the most depleted, the most weary, the most drained. Look at the places where your hypervigilance is raging and your body is tense. Stop trying to manage the universe on your own. There is no imaginary fine print designed to destroy you. God is not setting a trap for you. There is only a deeply loving Father waiting to carry the immense weight you were never, ever meant to hold.
He is ready to take the liabilities off your shoulders today. The contract is safe to sign.
So ask yourself this question today. What would your tomorrow look like if you woke up, consciously chose to sign over the deed, and permanently resigned as the general manager of your life? Step into the incredible freedom of a life fully committed to Christ's care and control. You can make that choice today.
You really can.
We look forward to seeing you walk in that freedom. Until next time, take care.